When dealing with aluminum wiring in a home, there are generally two main options to consider. Firstly, replacing the main panel and running dedicated circuits. Secondly, installing copper pigtails on all the switches and receptacles. Each option has its own set of advantages and disadvantages, which we will explore to help you make the most informed decision. Option 1, replacing the main panel and running dedicated circuits, involves a more comprehensive approach to addressing aluminum wiring concerns. One of the primary benefits of this option is enhanced safety. Aluminum wiring is known to be prone to overheating and potentially causing fires due to its higher resistance and expansion properties compared to copper. By replacing the aluminum wiring with copper, the risk of such hazards is significantly minimized, providing peace of mind and a safer living environment. Dedicated circuits offer improved power stability, particularly for essential appliances in the kitchen and bathrooms. These circuits are designed to handle the specific electrical demands of appliances like refrigerators, microwaves, and hair dryers, ensuring they receive a consistent and adequate power supply. This can prevent overloading and tripping of circuits, which are common issues of shared or undersized wiring. Replacing the main panel and running new wires represents a long-term solution that directly tackles the underlying problem of aluminum wiring throughout the house. Unlike temporary fixes, this approach provides a lasting resolution that eliminates the risks associated with aluminum wiring and enhances the overall electrical system of the home. Furthermore, a home with updated electrical wiring is generally more desirable to potential future buyers and can increase its overall market value. Modernized electrical systems can be a significant selling point, as they assure buyers of safety, reliability, and compliance with current electrical codes. However, there are also some cons associated with this option. The most significant is the high cost. Replacing the main panel and running new circuits involves more extensive labor and material costs compared to installing copper pigtails. This can be a substantial investment, particularly for larger homes or those with complex wiring systems. The work also requires opening up walls and ceilings, which can be disruptive to the occupants. This can involve dust, noise, and temporary relocation of furniture, adding inconvenience to the project. It is also crucial to ensure that the electrical work is done in compliance with local electrical codes and regulations. Failure to do so could result in failed inspections and potential liabilities, making it essential to hire licensed and experienced electricians who are familiar with local requirements. Option 2, installing copper pigtails, presents a different set of considerations. One of the primary advantages of this option is its lower cost compared to replacing the entire wiring system. Installing copper pigtails involves connecting short lengths of copper wire to the existing aluminum wiring at connection points such as switches and receptacles, which is less labor-intensive and requires fewer materials. This option is also less disruptive to the occupants, as pigtails can be installed without major renovations to walls or ceilings. The work is typically confined to individual electrical boxes, minimizing the inconvenience and mess. It can also provide a temporary fix to the problem of aluminum wiring. By creating a copper-to-copper connection at the termination points, pigtailing can reduce the risk of overheating and corrosion at these critical locations. However, it is essential to recognize the limitations of this approach. Copper pigtails do not fully address the safety risks associated with aluminum wiring. While they can improve the connections at specific points, the majority of the aluminum wiring remains in place throughout the house, leaving the potential for issues in other areas. Pigtails only address the connections at switches and receptacles, not the wiring throughout the house. This means that any problems occurring within the walls or ceilings will not be resolved by pigtailing alone. Copper pigtails are not a permanent fix and can corrode over time, requiring periodic replacement. The dissimilar metals, aluminum and copper, can react with each other, leading to corrosion and eventual failure of the connection. Furthermore, some inspectors may not approve homes with copper pigtails on aluminum wiring. Local electrical codes and regulations vary, and some jurisdictions may have specific requirements for addressing aluminum wiring that pigtailing does not meet. When deciding between these two options, there are several factors to consider. Safety should always be the top priority. If the primary concern is minimizing the risk of fire and electrical hazards, replacing the main panel and running dedicated circuits is the more comprehensive and effective solution. Long-term reliability is another important consideration. If you are looking for a lasting solution that addresses the underlying problem of aluminum wiring, replacing the wiring is the better choice. It provides a more robust and dependable electrical system that will require less maintenance over time. Home value can also influence the decision. If you're planning to sell the house in the future, upgrading the electrical wiring can make it more attractive to potential buyers and potentially increase its market value. On the other hand, cost is a significant factor for many homeowners. If budget constraints are a concern, installing copper pigtails may be a more affordable option. However, it is essential to weigh the cost savings against the potential safety risks and limitations of this approach. The level of disruption is another consideration. If you want to minimize the impact on your daily life during the electrical work, pigtailing is the less intrusive option. However, the long-term benefits of rewiring may outweigh the temporary inconvenience. Ultimately, the best choice depends on individual circumstances and priorities. If safety, long-term reliability, and home value are the top priorities, replacing the main panel and running dedicated circuits is generally the recommended option. It provides the most comprehensive and effective solution for addressing the risks associated with aluminum wiring. If cost and minimal disruption are more important, installing copper pigtails could be considered as a temporary measure. However, it is crucial to understand the limitations of this approach and ensure that it complies with local electrical codes and regulations. It is always advisable to consult with a qualified and licensed electrician to assess the specific situation and provide personalized recommendations based on local codes and requirements. An electrician can evaluate the condition of the existing wiring, assess the electrical load demands of the home, and offer guidance on the most appropriate course of action. When dealing with aluminum wiring, it is essential to be aware of the potential risks and take appropriate measures to ensure the safety and reliability of the electrical system. By carefully considering the options and seeking professional advice, homeowners can make informed decisions that protect their families and property. Aluminum wiring was used extensively in homes built between the mid-1960s and mid-1970s. The primary reason for its use was the rising cost of copper during that period. Aluminum is a lighter and more abundant metal than copper, making it an economically attractive alternative. However, several issues arose with the use of aluminum wiring in residential applications. Firstly, aluminum has a higher electrical resistance than copper. This means that for the same ampacity, an aluminum wire must be larger in diameter than a copper wire. If the aluminum wiring was not properly sized, it could overheat, leading to a fire hazard. Secondly, aluminum is more susceptible to corrosion than copper. When aluminum wiring is exposed to moisture or certain chemicals, it can corrode, leading to a loss of conductivity and increased resistance. This corrosion can occur at connections, such as outlets and switches, and can create a fire hazard. Thirdly, aluminum expands and contracts more than copper with changes in temperature. This difference in thermal expansion can cause connections to loosen over time, leading to increased resistance and potential overheating. Fourthly, aluminum is a softer metal than copper, making it more prone to damage during installation. If the aluminum wiring is nicked or scratched, it can weaken the wire and increase the risk of failure. To address these issues, several measures were taken to improve the safety of aluminum wiring installations. These included the development of aluminum-compatible connectors and the use of antioxidant compounds to prevent corrosion. However, even with these improvements, concerns remained about the long-term reliability of aluminum wiring. As a result, many homeowners chose to replace their aluminum wiring with copper wiring. Replacing aluminum wiring with copper wiring is a significant undertaking that involves removing the existing aluminum wiring and replacing it with new copper wiring. This is typically done by a licensed electrician and can be a costly and disruptive process. However, it provides the most comprehensive and permanent solution to the problems associated with aluminum wiring. Another option for addressing aluminum wiring is to install copper pigtails at connections. This involves attaching a short length of copper wire to the existing aluminum wiring using a special connector that is designed for use with both aluminum and copper. The copper pigtail is then connected to the outlet switch or other device. This approach can reduce the risk of overheating and corrosion at connections, but it does not address the underlying problems with the aluminum wiring itself. Several types of connectors are available for use with aluminum wiring. These connectors are designed to provide a secure, reliable connection between the aluminum wiring and the copper pigtail or device. It is important to use only connectors that are specifically listed for use with aluminum wiring. One common type of connector is the twist-on connector, which is similar to the type used with copper wiring. However, twist-on connectors for aluminum wiring are typically filled with an antioxidant compound to prevent corrosion. Another type of connector is the push-in connector, which allows the copper pigtail to be inserted into the connector without twisting. Push-in connectors are also typically filled with an antioxidant compound. Another option is to use a terminal screw connector, which is a type of screw terminal that is designed for use with aluminum wiring. Terminal screw connectors typically have a larger surface area than standard screw terminals, which helps to reduce the risk of overheating. Several safety precautions should be taken when working with aluminum wiring. Firstly, always disconnect the power to the circuit before working on any wiring. Secondly, use only connectors that are specifically listed for use with aluminum wiring. Thirdly, apply an antioxidant compound to the connections to prevent corrosion. Fourthly, tighten all connections securely. Fifthly, inspect the wiring regularly for signs of damage or corrosion. If you are not comfortable working with aluminum wiring, it is best to hire a licensed electrician. An electrician will have the knowledge and experience to safely and properly address any issues with aluminum wiring. Aluminum wiring is often found in older homes, particularly those built between the 1960s and 1970s. Identifying aluminum wiring is relatively straightforward. The most obvious indicator is the color of the wiring. Aluminum wiring is typically silver or gray, while copper wiring is typically orange or brown. Another way to identify aluminum wiring is to look for markings on the wire insulation. Aluminum wiring is typically marked with the letters AL or aluminum. The gauge of aluminum wiring is also typically larger than that of copper wiring for the same ampacity. For example, a 15-amp circuit wired with copper might use 14-gauge wire, while the same circuit wired with aluminum might use 12-gauge wire. If you are unsure whether your home has aluminum wiring, it is best to consult with a licensed electrician. An electrician can inspect the wiring and determine whether it is aluminum or copper. They can also assess the condition of the wiring and recommend any necessary repairs or upgrades. Aluminum wiring is not inherently dangerous, but it does require special attention to ensure safety. By taking the necessary precautions and consulting with a qualified electrician, homeowners can minimize the risks associated with aluminum wiring and ensure the safety of their homes. It is crucial to understand the specific requirements of the National Electrical Code (NEC) regarding aluminum wiring. The NEC provides detailed guidelines for the safe installation, maintenance, and repair of electrical systems, including those with aluminum wiring. Some key NEC requirements related to aluminum wiring include proper sizing of conductors, use of approved connectors and devices, and application of antioxidant compounds. For example, NEC Table 310.15 B16 specifies the allowable ampacities of insulated conductors rated up to 2000 volts, and it differentiates between copper, aluminum, and copper-clad aluminum conductors. This table helps ensure that aluminum conductors are properly sized to carry the intended current without overheating. Another important aspect is the use of listed and labeled connectors and devices specifically designed for use with aluminum wiring. These connectors are designed to provide a secure and reliable connection between aluminum conductors and other components, such as outlets, switches, and circuit breakers. They often incorporate features such as pressure plates and antioxidant compounds to prevent corrosion and ensure a lasting connection. The NEC also requires the application of antioxidant compounds to aluminum connections to prevent corrosion. These compounds help to protect the aluminum from oxidation and maintain a low resistance connection. They are typically applied to the conductor before making the connection and should be reapplied periodically as part of routine maintenance. Furthermore, the NEC addresses the issue of dissimilar metals such as aluminum and copper coming into contact with each other. When dissimilar metals are in contact, they can create a galvanic reaction that leads to corrosion. The NEC requires the use of approved methods to prevent this galvanic reaction, such as using connectors that are specifically designed for use with both aluminum and copper conductors. It is essential to be aware of these NEC requirements and to ensure that all electrical work is performed in accordance with them. Failure to comply with the NEC can result in unsafe conditions and potential hazards. When dealing with aluminum wiring, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrician who is familiar with the NEC and local electrical codes. An electrician can assess the specific situation and provide guidance on the most appropriate course of action. They can also perform any necessary repairs or upgrades to ensure that the electrical system is safe and reliable. In addition to the NEC, local electrical codes may also have specific requirements for aluminum wiring. These codes may vary depending on the jurisdiction, so it is important to be aware of the local requirements in your area. Local codes may address issues such as the type of connectors that are allowed, the frequency of inspections, and the requirements for replacing aluminum wiring. It is important to contact your local building department or electrical inspector to obtain information about the local electrical codes in your area. They can provide guidance on the specific requirements for aluminum wiring and answer any questions you may have. It is also important to keep in mind that aluminum wiring is not necessarily a safety hazard if it is properly installed and maintained. Many homes with aluminum wiring have operated safely for decades without any problems. However, it is important to be aware of the potential risks and to take appropriate measures to ensure safety. This includes having the wiring inspected regularly by a qualified electrician, using approved connectors and devices, and applying antioxidant compounds to the connections. It also includes being aware of the signs of problems, such as flickering lights, warm outlets, and the smell of burning plastic. If you notice any of these signs, it is important to contact an electrician immediately. In conclusion, dealing with aluminum wiring requires a careful and informed approach. By understanding the potential risks, following the NEC and local electrical codes, and consulting with a qualified electrician, homeowners can ensure the safety and reliability of their electrical systems. Remember that safety should always be the top priority, and any concerns about aluminum wiring should be addressed promptly and professionally. Option 1 and 2 are both viable, and they both have pros and cons depending on your budget and what you plan to do with the house. Copper pigtails, if done correctly, may be a good option if you need to keep the cost down. Rewiring is going to be more expensive, but much safer, and you will have a brand new electrical system.